then?
Yeah, I can
Okay.
do that. So,
All right.
all right.
I'm not going to say every word on this, every slide, but I thought if people wanted a copy, like a PDF of that or something, we
Yep.
could do that.
Yep. All right. I think we are live. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. My name is Chad Baker, and everyone, if you don't know me, I'm the chair of the Democratic Party in York County, and I want to welcome you tonight to so you want to be a school board member, school board director, school board candidate, however you want to say it. We're excited to have you here tonight to talk a little bit about kind of what's involved with the school board, as well as just answer any questions that you might have, talk about how to get on the ballot, those types of things as well. I am going to actually turn things over here in just a second. I'm trying to figure out what happened to my other screen here, so we'll give me 1 second, and then I'm going to turn things over actually to our director of communications and marketing for the party. But for tonight's purposes, our sorry about that. I'm hearing different things in my head. So, all right. So, so again, she's our director of marketing communications for the party. But in addition to that, as I was saying, more importantly for tonight, Deb Yannick-Kalina is a school board member in Southern York School District, and she's going to give you a little bit of an idea of what it took for her to get on the school board, answer some questions about kind of maybe what's involved in being on the school board and that type of thing as well. So Deb, I am going to turn it over to you. So give me 1 minute, and I'm going to disappear off your screen here probably, and then we should be ready to go. So let me share up the presentation. And I think we should be good. You can go ahead and start anytime, Deb.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, Chad. And as Chad said, my name is Deborah Yannick-Kalina. I am known on Southern York County School District as Deborah Kalina. I ran with the family name. Yannick is my maiden name, which I use for business. So I have many aliases. So this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to run for school board. I'm a newbie. I'm in my first term right now. But I thought to get things started that we'd kind of do an overview, and then we'd open it up for questions and open discussion to see what y'all think. So if you could turn the next slide. Okay, so a good place to start is to talk about what a school board is. And a school board is elected by the citizens of the school district. There are 9 that sit on the board, and they serve for a 4-year term. Governing a public school system happens in a highly regulated environment. School boards are subject to the Pennsylvania Sunshine Act, requiring that they deliberate and make decisions at meetings to and opened to the public, advertised to and open to the public. So the main responsibilities of a school board are to set the vision and goals for the district, to adopt policies that give the district direction, to set the priorities and achieve goals, to hire and evaluate the superintendent, who is actually the one who manages the day-to-day business of the district, to also adopt and oversee an annual budget, and to manage the collective bargaining process for employees of the district. Next slide. So a typical school board meeting includes many different kinds of items, like approving the school calendar and contracts with outside vendors, to adopting curriculum and overseeing construction. There's definitely a balance between the day-to-day business that you're overseeing, as well as looking forward to what you want to achieve in the district, particularly with the academic achievement. I have found that in my time on school board that you could expect to spend at least 20 hours a month. There's time in preparing for the school board meetings. There's the time that you're in the school board meeting, and then committee meetings and ongoing professional development and district events. And it does take, quite a bit of your time. Next slide, please. So the first place that I went to when I started to think about running for school board was to check out the Pennsylvania School Board Association's website, psba.org. And I cannot stress enough to you that this website is a wealth of information that can not only get you thinking about what does it mean to be a school board member, what is it going to take, what do I need to understand and learn, but also to help you figure out how you're going to organize your messaging, because you see all the things that you'll be involved in as a school board member. So it will kind of get you brainstorming in terms of your messaging and how you're going to proceed from there. So definitely check out the psba.org site. And then once you become a school board member, it is an ongoing source of professional development moving forward. Next slide, please. Oh, so here's a little movie for you from PSBA.
All right, actually, I need to stop sharing for 1 second.
I was hoping that works.
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
I just need to make sure that I had the sound that I'm sharing as well, so. All right, here we go.
Have you ever thought about how you can make a difference in your community? Well, if you have what it takes, you might consider serving your community as an elected school director on your local school board. School boards impact not only the quality of your schools, but also the entire community, now and into the future. You see, the decisions made by school boards affect every important aspect of your local schools, from curriculum to clubs, boundaries to bus schedules, funding to field trips. The school board sets the tone for how the community views its local schools and how much the community will support its schools. Being a school director is not rocket science, but as a school director candidate, you should have a vision and goals for the high academic achievement for all students, and be able to communicate your vision and goals to the public. You should be able to inspire parents and other stakeholders to have confidence in your local public schools. Your background and skills should also enhance the mix of the other directors to help represent the diversity of your community. Plus, you need to be committed to doing what is right for all children, even in the face of opposition. Serving as a school director can be a wonderful experience, but there are some simple legal qualifications to consider. First, you must be at least 18 years of age and of good moral character. Second, you must live within the boundaries of the school district for at least 1 year before the election date. Third, you cannot work to help or do business with the school district. Finally, you cannot be a school director and at the same time also hold certain other elected positions such as mayor, or be executive director or assistant executive director of an intermediate unit. Otherwise, successful school directors above all else care deeply about the quality of the education received by the students in their schools. Students are affected by every decision that school directors make, so you must be willing to always put them first in your mind. Successful school directors also understand what the job is and what the job is not. The school board does not run its schools, but it makes sure that its schools are well run. This means that you must trust the educational professionals who have been hired to manage the day-to-day operation of the school district, while you, as a member of the board, set the policy and strategic direction of the district. The only school district employee that the board collectively hires, oversees, and evaluates is the superintendent, the one who is in charge of running the district day to day. Here's how you can get started. The first step is to file a nominating petition signed by at least 10 qualified voters of the school district. The signers must be registered members of the political party for which nomination is sought. Confirm the required number of signatures with your county board of elections, as certain additional requirements may apply. Be sure to turn in your petition by the deadline, or you'll miss your chance to be on the ballot. Each candidate for the office of school director must also file a statement of financial interest for the preceding calendar year with the school board secretary of the school district. A copy of the statement must also be attached to the nominating petition filed with the County Board of Elections. Lastly, Pennsylvania requires that candidates file campaign finance reports with the County Board of Elections listing campaign expenditures and contributions received, including the names and addresses of persons who contribute $50 or more to the campaign. The school code provides that in each school district, 9 school directors are elected for 4-year terms, with 5 to be elected in one municipal election and 4 to be elected 2 years later in the next municipal election. This 5-4 rotation helps ensure continuity, so that there are always at least some members of the board who have at least 2 or more years of experience. School director primary elections usually happen on the 3rd Tuesday in May in municipal election years. Learn more about how to run for office, the legal responsibilities, and the principles for governance and leadership by going to psba.org.
Orson, am I back?
Yes, you're good to go.
I'm good to go. Okay, so the next few slides that we have going on kind of lay out what we just saw in the brief film, but the requirements to running to be 18 years of age, of good moral character, resident of the district for a year. You can't work for the district. And also, if you're a federal employee, the Hatch Act comes into play, prohibiting all federal employees and employees of state or local governments whose positions are funded by federal sources from being candidates in partisan political elections, including school board. And as they said, there's a rotation, which is really cool. This is the year that 5 seats are up on school boards, and then in another 2 years in 2023 it will be 4, and it really does help to have continuity on the board that way. And then vacancies caused by resignation or death or people moving out of the district are filled by appointment conducted by the remaining board directors. Next slide, please. So I was going to turn over the getting on the ballot to Chad because he's so good at talking about it, at least for the next couple of slides, and then I'll jump back in.
Yeah, thanks, Deb. It's important, as you saw in the video, to circulate your petitions to get on the ballot. And there's a couple different things with school board races than there are with other races that you might run for. First of all, to get on the school board, you only need to get signatures from 10 registered members of your political party. So if you're running as a Democrat, you'll want to get at least 10. We often advise at least double, if not triple those numbers. Obviously, this year it'll be a little bit tougher because we're not going to be able to necessarily go door to door or have in-person events. And I'll mention a little bit some of the plans that the party will be doing in a minute. But so 10, somewhere between 10 to 30, ideally is what we're looking for when it comes to signatures. What is different with a school board race, though, than other races is that you can cross-file, which means that you can also have your name on the Republican ticket. And if you are planning to run for school board, we highly advise that you do that you circulate both a Democratic and a Republican petition to get on the ballot. You need to have, obviously, a registered Republican sign that, and you should have a Republican circulated as well. There's some clarification on that I'm actually getting from state committee where that might not be the case this year. They may allow you to carry both, but for right now, we're saying, we're letting folks know Republicans should carry Republican petitions, Democrats should carry Democratic petitions, but you can have one of each if you're running for school board. So your name will appear on both the Democratic and Republican primary ballot. You can get your petitions from the Board of Elections, and the Board of Elections is actually going to have them available online this year, so that you can go on and download the blank petition, and then you'll fill that out, and you'll that's what you'll use to circulate. Those will be available according to the Board of Elections next Monday, February 8th. Those will be available on their website, the County Board of Elections website. And petitioning will actually begin on Tuesday, February 16th. You cannot circulate a petition before the 16th. Anything that, any signatures that you might get before the 16th will actually invalidate the entire petition. So wait until the 16th, and then it will run until Tuesday, I believe it's March 9th. Let me just double check that for sure. Tuesday, March 9th, yep, is the last date to get them to the Board of Elections and get your name on the ballot. The other thing I will mention with those is that if you are circulating the petition, there will be a box on the petition that is a circulator affidavit. You must complete that as someone who is circulating the petition. If you're running as a candidate, there will be a candidate affidavit that you have to fill out for just one. You know, if you turn in, say, 7 pages of petitions, you only need to have that candidate affidavit filled out on one petition, and you do need to get that notarized. So, you know, we can provide, we may be able to provide that service, or there is notary service available at the Board of Elections to get that notarized for you. And then, as Deb indicated here in the presentation, that school directors must include the statement of financial interest. Again, based on my understanding from the Board of Elections this year, they're going to provide all of those documents in one convenient location for you to download on their website. So when you download the petition, you will also need to download that statement of financial interest, and it needs to be returned with your petitions when you are when you're turning those back in. I will mention one other thing, and that is that the Board of Elections is stressing heavily that if you get your petitions completed prior to the March 9th deadline, that you bring those to the Board of Elections and file them as they are completed. And the reason that they're recommending that is because right now their COVID protocol only allows for 2 people at a time in their office. And they know that literally there are hundreds of positions on the ballot this year. And if all those people decided to come in at the last minute to file, it would make it extremely difficult. It would be an incredible backlog, and they don't want that. So, you know, so if you start circulating your petitions on the 16th of February, and by the end of that week, you have all that you need, take them to the Board of Elections, get them filed. If you would collect other signatures after the fact, you can file a supplement to that original petition. But obviously, if you have 25 or 30, you should be in pretty good shape. So the next thing is, it says it here already. I already mentioned this about, you know, make sure that you get 2 to 3 times as many signatures as you can get. You know, as Deb indicated here, consider trying to make your circulators available at public sites. So, you know, maybe at a library, maybe depending on what protocol is for COVID. You know, you'll want to check with those facilities ahead of time. And one of the things that, a couple of things that we are doing from the party perspective this year is we've been talking to our regional directors about seeing if they can find locations where we can do drive-up petitioning, where you literally can drive your car up. We would hand you the petition, you would sign it, and then go on your way. We would have all the petitions available so that you can just sign them right there. And we were looking at making that available in as many locations and as many times throughout the circulating period as possible. Obviously, if you have family or friends, you can always reach out to them and see if they will sign your petitions as long as they're registered with your party. They can sign those petitions. And again, it's not an overwhelming number to get 10. You know, again, we do advise that you get a few more. I do want to point out too, one clarification. In past years, anyone that's been running for York City School District has needed to get 100 signatures. That is no longer the case. All school boards in York County only require 10 signatures for each party. So you are in good shape there. And as it says here, you can obtain all of the documents that you need at the Board of Elections, and you want to make sure that you get them in to the Board of Elections before that deadline of March 9th. And you can find that calendar actually a number of different places. The elections calendar is available on our website at yorkdems.org. You can find it on the Board of Elections website, or you can also find it at the Pennsylvania Department of State, their website as well. Just a couple things to remember when doing petitions, and I will recommend as well, before I go into the don'ts here, we will be offering a more in-depth petitioning webinar next Monday. That is the 8th, the day that petitions become available through the county. We will be offering a petitioning webinar online as well. So if you're interested in that, you can visit our website and sign up. But when doing petitions, one of the things that you want to remember is that you want individuals to sign their names as they are registered to vote. So the example that we have here is that if someone's registered as Janice Brown, but they go as Jan Brown, you want to make sure that you're telling them ahead of time, make sure you're signing and printing your name as it appears on the registration, so that there's no way that someone can contest whether or not that's actually the right person who signed. You want to make sure that the signer puts the correct date. There will be a column that lists the date, and you'll want to make sure that somebody's not just looking at the date above it and writing it down if it was 2 days before, day before, whatever. You want to make sure that they're putting the correct date in chronological order. You also want to make sure that when they put down what their city, borough, or township is, that they are not putting down necessarily their mailing address. And a great example of that, I always use myself as an example. I vote, my precinct is Manchester Township, Manchester 3 Township, Manchester Township Ward 3, I should say. But my mailing address is York, my street address, and York, PA. When doing the petition, I will write Manchester Township on the petition. I do not write York. That does not count. They want to see the township, basically the precinct that you're voting in. So if you're voting in a township, Manchester Township, East Manchester Township, Hallam Township, whatever the township might be, you want to make sure that you're including that on the petition. You can abbreviate township as well. We've had that question before. Obviously somebody that lives in Springettsbury Township, that's pretty long to try to squeeze into the little box that they provide. So you can put TWP as an abbreviation. And if the signer signs the wrong petition or is not registered to vote in that district, you need to cancel out that particular signature. They can't sign that. So if you have a Democratic petition and a Republican signs it, you need to make sure that they sign the correct petition, the Republican petition, because anything that could be disqualified will obviously lessen your overall totals. And one other thing I'll mention before I turn it back over to Deb here with petitions is, as you're doing petitioning, you want to kind of watch as people are filling it out, making sure they're doing filling it out correctly. If at any point there's an error, you need to draw a thick black line through that entire line and have that person sign it again below. I know sometimes it's an inconvenience, but you want to make sure that all of your signatures are legitimate and you are getting as many quality signatures, as many legal signatures as possible. So, as I said, we will have another workshop on the petitioning next Monday. And if you are available, feel free to register. If not, you can always come back to our YouTube page here, and that'll be available for you here as well. So, all right, I'm going to turn it back over to Deb. You got my petitioning expertise, and now I'll be quiet.
Thank you so much. Well, that previous slide, the picture was of me when I was doing my petitioning, if you want to go back there. And we did it at the right outside the Glen Rock Library. And I actually had a notary there and filled several pages with people coming in. I had cookies and I made it a little event and had the notary stamping things up right away, like the first day that I came out the gate. But COVID is presenting so many challenges that we have to be even more creative this time around. But always remember too that a lot of households, if you're calling a friend, there are several voters in one household. So you can maybe conceivably get a handful of signatures at one place. So, keep that in mind as well. And definitely go for more than 10. I think I got 30, maybe 35 Republican, and I got 50 Democratic signatures. But each person that either I spoke to or someone that was carrying the petition for me spoke to is making an impression and talking about you as a candidate. So you're already laying the groundwork for your campaign that way. And those are people that you can come back to once you get rolling with the campaign. So next slide. So why are you running for school board? You have to analyze this question and kind of come to an answer of how you're going to tell people when they ask you that question. PSBA makes this very clear, and I agree with it. A good school board candidate does not have a single issue focus, but rather is interested in the success of all the students in the district. If you have one single thing that drives you, like you're upset over the athletic department or something with the theater group or whatever, that's not what it's all about. So you really have to think more broadly and come to this position with just that in mind, the student's best interest. So and when you're trying to think about how you're explaining how you're coming to this point too, you can talk about the skills that you have and that you can bring to the board, the expertise, the analytical, leadership, collaborative skills, and the perspectives that can move the board forward. What do you bring to that? What are your visions for your school district 5 to 10 years from now? What policies would you initiate to improve student achievement? Everybody asked me when I ran, what are you going to do with property taxes? And that's been a can being kicked down the road for many, many years by our state legislator. And there's really nothing from a school board's point of view other than levying tax for our budget needs that can talk about how they want to apply property tax. So you have to check out Pennsylvania Senate Bill 76, and information is on psba.org about that. There's a lot of feelings on both sides in both parties about which way to go. It's very complex, and we're not going to get into it on this Zoom, but definitely get yourself acquainted with that. In fact, familiarize yourself with what's happening at your school district to date. Go on the website, look back at some of the board meetings if you don't already attend them. Go through the current board policies. A lot of what you need to know is already there on the website for you to see. Next slide, please. So again, on PSBA, everything you need to kind of guide you is there, and their principles for governance and leadership lay out what's expected of a school board member. So as you're thinking about your message and your role and what you bring to the table, you can kind of incorporate your personal stories touching on these points. And key points for any school board member is a commitment to improving quality of education in your community, ability to listen, willingness to support and defend your local students, confidence to make decisions, and skill to incorporate consensus, needs, and priorities of the community into strong policies. Next slide, please. So, you need a team. You can't do this alone. I can tell you that. And the very best place to start is to think about who your circle of love is. I call it the circle of love list. And identify, trusted family and friends, your colleagues, neighbors, people that you're close to in church or club affiliations who have things that, talents they can bring, time they can offer, money they can help to fund your campaign. These people love you. They want you to succeed, and they're going to be the ones that are going to help get you started. And to have that foundation, it's really exciting, and it really helps you move things forward. And you'd be so surprised at the circle of love you have when you start asking people for help. Jackie Wilson, who I believe is probably on this Zoom, was my campaign manager. She's our Region 8 director for the Democratic Party of York. And I could not have done what I did without her. I am a freelance writer. I work at home, but I have a pretty solid work schedule. And it was difficult for me to get around to do things as often as I wanted to, and to be organized. And Jackie was my campaign manager, and she kept me sane. She organized my life. She looked at the community and how I would go about best approaching my door knocking or phone calling. She actually served as wore two hats. She was campaign manager and she was a field director for me. And really, on a school board campaign is smaller than if you're running for county commissioner or for a state legislator or U.S. Congress. But so you find that a lot of people may be wearing several hats, and Jackie certainly did. She was both campaign manager and field director. And then, of course, you need a treasurer, and you can't do it. So you have to have somebody who can help record the cash that's coming in and the donations and keeping up with all the deadlines. And Ali Collier was my wonderful treasurer, and we both learned a lot. And we could talk about this later on, making mistakes and missing some deadlines and things. But I see that the County Board of Elections, and I don't know if Chad would agree with me on this, that they've upped their ante on their communications, and their website looks a lot more comprehensive and easier to follow. And I did not find that at the time 4 years ago when I ran. So. And then, of course, other people, part of your kitchen cabinet, as we call it, because we're sitting around our kitchen table, drinking coffee and trying to figure out how we're going to pull this off, is volunteers who can, knock on doors and make phone calls for you, and people who can donate to your campaign. I spent under $2,000 for the campaign. Some school board members don't spend any money. Some races are more contentious than others. So it all depends on what district you're in, and what finances you have to work with. But typically, I would say $2,000 would be a maximum spent on a local school board race. Next slide, please. So again, we need money, and you need money for lots of things. You need money for yard signs, mailings, buttons, shirts, things that you're going to use to raise funds. I highly recommend yard signs for local school board races. People even told me when they went to vote on the election day that they voted for me because they liked the sound of my name on the sign, and they saw my signs all over the place. So I was okay, that's good, I'll take that. So sign really does help with name recognition, I think. And then I did buttons. And my son was still in high school at the time that I ran, and all his friends wore buttons on their backpacks and stuff. And some parents came to vote and told me that they knew about me because their child came home and said, "Vote for Deb Kalina," and had my button. So you never know what touch points will, will make those connections for you. And then we don't know what's happening with COVID. So, local fairs are a great place to have a table to interact with the community. But we don't know what's happening with that. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. And then, of course, people can do in-kind donations. If you know someone who's a photographer, can help you with photography or writing for press releases or baking cupcakes for an event. All of these things need to be recorded properly. Next slide, please. So messaging. This one was kind of hard for me when I was running because when I ran in 2017, I didn't necessarily have any we have a really good school board, actually. And there wasn't anything controversial per se. And it's just that people were on the school board for a very long time. I think the youngest was of 12 years on the school board. So I wasn't sure how to approach it. It wasn't as though people were necessarily dissatisfied with our school board. Why would they want to vote for somebody who was new? But I was very active in my school district. So I kind of went with that storyline in terms of all the things that I was doing with the school. And then my background in communications, I thought that the school could do a better job with communications. And I think in the 4 years thus far that I've been on, I'd like to think I had a little part in helping us be better at communications, because I'm very excited about a lot of things that we're doing. So when you're thinking about slogans and ideas and ways of getting your message across, what I first did too was Google around. Google and see what other school board candidates have done, what other messages look like. But here are just some ideas that you might take with you. What was mine? Mine was, what was mine? Terrible. I can't find it, put my own on here. Okay, well, strong schools, strong community. That was mine. So, all right, next slide, please. So campaign collateral, again, we spoke about yard signs, and you could see on the left, the picture that's called a rack card. I highly recommend that. It's something easy that you can hand out. You can leave it in a door. You could carry it in your purse, give it to people to hand out for you. It's a two-sided with your basic information. But on all of your correspondence, on all your collateral, you must remember to write, even if it's in the tiniest print somewhere, paid for by Friends of Deb Kalina. I at first made 50 signs and forgot to do that. And then I needed stickers to put on all the 50 signs. So to save yourself from doing that, you have to remember to put them on your signs and on your other print collateral. Don't put the election date on yard signs. Some people I've noticed have done that. And then if they win the primary and go on to the general, then they have to put stickers and cover things up. So I wouldn't do it on that. But for print material, you can kind of gauge how much you need based on your district. I think initially we probably ordered 1,000 to almost 2,000 copies of the rack cards that we gave out during the campaign. And if you had any leftovers with the primary date on it, you could always use stickers to cover that up. Next slide, please. So you can't stress enough how important grassroots efforts are. thank God for Jackie Wilson, who was so incredible at door knocking. To me, that was the most fun and exciting part of it, because you really get to talk to your neighbors, and the face to face was incredible. Um, it takes time, but it is worth every minute, and the sooner you start, the better. Um, we also did some, phone banking, just taking lists and calling up. I did reach a number of people that were successful, but I felt like the door knocking was even more successful for me, in just talking to people and introducing myself. So next slide, please. So at the polls, I mean, when you get to the point of the primary, and a lot of resources we have through DPOYC and our other democratic organizations that can help you get to this point. But in general, on the day of at the polls, you want to identify, all the polling sites that in your district. In my district, there are 9 for Southern New York County. And typically on election day, you want to go around and plant a couple of signs at each of those locations where people are voting, at least 2, unless it's very small. And identify volunteers who can represent you outside, the polling sites. And typically the busiest sites and during the busiest times, because we're all spread thin, and anyone who can donate any time to you is a precious gift. So maximize those who can help you out, put them on your busiest polls. And basically what they're doing outside is just reminding people, hey, if you don't know about Deb Kalina, here's some information just in case. A lot of people don't know everyone who's running for school board. They don't even know who's on their school board in a lot of cases. So I found even on election day at the polls, I still had conversation with people that said, after I talked to you, I went in and voted for you. So you never know. Next slide, please. So this is our final slide here, just kind of giving you information. The DPOYC is a great resource for a lot of needs regarding the campaigns that you put together, and also to find a lot of links to all the Democratic clubs and organizations of York County. And I have to say, we have the most outstanding group of clubs in York County, with the hardest working volunteers I have ever met. It is a fun, enormously great, energetic, selfless group of people, and we're all trying our best to get Dems elected. So, and other references here are York County Board of Elections website. Definitely bookmark that and keep going to that to check on things. And as I said, PSBA website. And that's that.
All right, thanks, Deb. If anyone has any questions, go ahead and pop them up into the chat right now, and I will share those. Deb, we did have a question earlier from Matt, and that question was, do you have to have been a resident for 1 year prior to the primary or to the general election to run for a school board?
For the primary.
It's actually the November election.
Is it the general or the primary?
Yeah. It's I just looked on the PSBA site to double check, and they indicated that you have to be a candidate for at least 1 year prior to the actual election that you would be elected into that position. So it would be the November election. Yeah. And it also indicated that for school board, you have to be 18 years old, as well as have no record of any conviction or anything like that. Anyone that's active, and I wasn't aware of this, but anyone that's active duty military can't run for a position based on Department of Defense guidelines that are out there. So those are some interesting tidbits there.
Yes.
So one thing I wanted to, that came to mind, Deb, that I wanted to ask, obviously in some races, endorsements are important. So to get, those endorsements from, groups like, say, the PSEA, which is the teachers union here in Pennsylvania, or potentially other labor unions. Do you think it's important to try to get endorsements for this kind of race?
I generally don't see them. I myself did not, and I don't know that PSEA endorsement would make a voter necessarily vote for a school board member or not. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
I don't. I remember
I
when
would tend to agree with you.
Yeah. I don't think that for this position it is. No.
Yeah.
It's a weird position in a way, from where we started with all of this, is that you're one of 9. So it's not really like a congressman or a senator, and you're almost faceless in the group. Not that you don't have your own personality or your own, questions or concerns or issues, but you're working collectively. So yeah. I don't know on the endorsements. No.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. You're right. It's a very different kind of position in that regard, and I don't know how much weight they would carry, but
It might be different, like like an urban area, like Philadelphia, or I don't see it being worth it necessarily locally.
Yeah. One other thing that I thought about too was, obviously you talked about the number of people that will run. If there are candidates of like mind, of like ideas, would you recommend that that group try to run as a slate as opposed to as one individual candidate?
Well, I guess it depends on the school district, and it depends on the tenor of the school district, like what's happening. But I think that it could be successful to run as a group, because you're maximizing your messaging, and you can maximize your dollars working together. And see, with my school district, and this was long before I came on board, there was a big shakeup. There was a lot of unhappy people. I was not around at the time. My son wasn't in the school yet, but there was a slate of like 5 that got on to change things around, and they ran together as a slate. I think it happened also in Dover after the intelligent design situation went down. So it depends on how you structure it. But I think that working together can be good.
Yeah. And I would agree too. I think, like you said, the fact that just from the simplest terms, it allows you to kind of get the most value for your dollar. That's important. So, I think you're right on that. One thing I wanted to mention to folks too, you were talking about signs and literature and those types of things. And I think what you said about do not put the election date on there, I think that's incredibly valuable because, as you said, you end up needing to put a sticker over it, or you throw it out and get brand new or whatever. So I think that's important. And I also think obviously in this kind of race, you don't want to put your party affiliation on there either, especially on your signs, but on your literature as well. I know in other campaigns, a lot of times in a primary race, folks will put their party affiliation, but given that you can cross-file, I think it's beneficial not to include that because, good, bad, or indifferent, not knowing who the party is, I hate to say it this way, but a lot of times the voters are not as educated on that aspect of it. And by seeing a party affiliation, I think that could throw them one way or the other. So, that would be my little bit of advice there with that as well. So
I totally agree. Since we are allowed to cross file, and I highly recommend that everyone cross files, it really doesn't matter what your party affiliation should be. And if you're serving, if you're of the mindset that you're going to serve as a school board director for the best interests of the students, then partisan politics doesn't come into play, which I have to give credit to my school board. And I know there's like so many horror stories out there of different school boards. My school district's very conservative. Jackie was convinced that when we wore red, it was a good thing. And I don't know. We'll have to do some kind of polling and see if that's a fact or not. But talking to people, many people asked me what my party affiliation was, and I did tell them. And some people immediately turned me off, and they're like, "Nope, I don't like Democrats." And I said, "Well, this has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. Let me tell you about, my experience in the school district." And I mean, I remember one door we were at with a very conservative man who went off on tangents about abortion and stuff, things that school board members don't have to make a decision on. And we talked our way out. I spent about 20 minutes there, Jackie and I did. And he asked if he could hug me. Like we hugged, and it was like wonderful. So there was a lot of connections made because of that face-to-face and the dialogue. And that is super, super important, because partisanship does not come into play and should not come into play when you're thinking about the best interest of the students.
Yeah, I think that's good. We did have a question here about how did you leverage social media in your campaign, and especially now with COVID, outreach on those media, do you think that would be more important or just as important as before?
Oh, definitely. Social media, very, very important. I didn't make a website. Some people do make their own website. I made a Facebook page, a candidate Facebook page, and then I kept it going after the election as just my own school board personal page. But it was a good way to connect with people in the district, because a lot of districts will have parent Facebook groups for the different schools in the district. So you can definitely share posts and let people know about you and what you're thinking and your background. Twitter as well. I'm not big on Instagram, so I didn't Instagram, but whatever you're good at, whatever you're comfortable with, start with that and then move from there. Everything helps. Every touch point, every connection that you can make helps. A good idea that one of the newer board members at Southern, Kelly, I don't know if she's on this Zoom as well.
Yes, she is. Yep.
Oh, okay. It's Kelly. I don't know if she wants to share, but she wrote personal letters to people in the district. She identified like the top super voters and wrote personal letters and had an awesome response. And so if you're sending even like, several hundred personal letters, or you have friends help you do postcards and letter writing, that has an impact. That is where this relationship building and that grassroots really happen.
Yeah. And actually, that's one thing, I'm glad you just mentioned that, because I hadn't even thought about that before, but the postcarding has been very successful in a lot of different races. And something like a school board race, I think it could be really helpful in that, you can have volunteers fill out a postcard. You can even have them in kind, the postage for it, and then send those to various voters in the district. Just, sometimes just adding that personal touch of, I know this individual, this is why I would vote for them. Would you please consider voting for them as well? So yeah, anything like that that adds that personal touch, especially now, as we said, with COVID, there's this rule in politics that you're supposed to outreach to your voters. I think it's 7 times. Yep. I think it's what it still is. So And, you know, it used to be a lot of that was if you went to an event and talked to someone or you knocked on their door. And a lot of that is you know, being held back. Now, hopefully by the time we get to the summer and into the general election season, hopefully we'll be able to do more of that. But at least for primary time, it's tough. You know, it's tough to do. So anything that you can do to, you know, continue to still have that as much of a personal touch to it, I think is really important. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
And another idea that I wanted to just bring up quick too is on petition signing. I did not do this, but I've heard this idea from others that it's been successful to hit school bus stops where there are lots of parents waiting for the bus to come and introduce yourself and see if people will sign your petition. And that's a good way to, you know, just get out there.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Yeah, I think it's, again, with petitioning, it's helpful that with a school board race, you don't need an overwhelming number of signatures. But at the same time, you know, what we tell candidates all the time is that the more signatures you get are more of those contact points that you can add to, you know, you've talked to this person and you can follow up with this person later on and that type of thing. So so yeah, any opportunity that you can get that's this year in a safe environment, whether it's outside or in small groups or what have you, you know, we definitely would encourage that. So the one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I want to thank Jackie's on here as well. I see her in the chat. So, and Jackie mentioned this. I just want to briefly mention some of the resources that the party has available for folks. For the first time this year, we do have a texting system that will be available, and that will be available for school board races, the township races, any of the local races that we have. And that'll be actually worked through our regional directors and volunteers helping with that. And the texting system it's a web-based texting system. So you literally will just go online, you'll have a script there that you can it'll pre-populate in, the number will pop up, you hit send, and it's basically like sending an email. It'll just send the text right out. And then you do have the ability, if someone were to reply to that as a volunteer, you'd have the ability to reply to them one-on-one if you choose to do that. So that I think is going to be important for reaching out to, especially for our local races into areas maybe where we haven't been able to even door knock in the past. Right. Deb, you mentioned buttons. We do have buttons available through headquarters. We can help with design. We can make those for you. Obviously, if you're looking for a specialty button like a rectangular button or a square button, those you'll have to order elsewhere. But for us, we can offer just the round buttons at a lower rate than what you would order them online. We do charge a little bit for that, but certainly it won't be as expensive as if it is online. And then the other thing I would mention is with signs, if you do decide that you're going to order yard signs, check with our headquarters first, because we have tons of sign wires, those wires that you stick in the ground. And before you order, we can tell you what size wire we have, and then you can order signs based on those, and we will give you those wires. And that's important because a lot of times with shipping, the wires tend to be the more expensive part of that because they're heavier, obviously. So if we can help offset any costs by providing those wires to you, we will do that. So, and as far as I know, you know, we've got a large variety of those, from the traditional kind of U-shaped ones, and then there's some that are H-shaped that go into more of the corrugated kind of signs. We've got a bunch of different sizes, shapes and sizes. So we would definitely encourage you to reach out before you order and check with us and see what we have on hand there. And then one other thing I'll mention is we do have a packet of information that we've created for in years past for folks that are interested in running for office, just with some of the basic tips that Deb talked about, some of the resources that are available through the party, and anyone that registered for tonight's session, we'll make sure that we email a copy of that to you so that you have that to reference as well. And of course, as Deb indicated, you know, obviously this presentation will be available as soon as we're done here. It saves permanently on our YouTube page, and you'll be able to access that if there's any information or questions that you need to go back to in the presentation. So yeah, I think it looks like that's pretty much. Oh, actually, Kelly is here, and she just mentioned that she also had T-shirts made for her
Oh, yes.
campaign,
Yes.
and
Awesome
talked about that. You know, she said about how they're inexpensive and they're essentially walking billboards for you. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's a great idea too.
Yes, and on that note too, with the buttons, I would always wear my button. Jackie would wear my button, and we'd go into the supermarket, you know, where you see everyone, and it does strike up a conversation. So yeah, those are all inexpensive ways to get your message out that are, you know, pretty accessible and easy to create.
Yeah. You know, and this is really crazy, but you know, in this age of COVID, you know, one of the ideas may be to come up with a Zoom background as well. You know, have
Oh, that's
your,
a great
if you have
idea.
a yard sign, you know, I'm just thinking, because it was making me think about it when Deb, you mentioned that your son and some of his friends wore your button, and then
Yeah.
I thought, well, there's a lot of students that are remote right now, so you know, you pop into a meeting and all of a sudden you've got that up in the background, you know,
That's a
that
scream. That's clever. Yes, I
can't
like that.
can't hurt, you know,
Yeah.
any exposure like that.
Yep.
So
Yep.
okay, so I don't see any other questions. So if anyone would think of any other questions after tonight, you can always reach out to us at
Yep.
the Democratic Party. The best way to reach us is through email at info@yorkdems.org. And if it's specific to this presentation, we'll make sure we get that question to Deb, and she can follow up with you as well. As I said, you know, definitely check out our website, the websites that Deb indicated as well. There's a lot of good resources there that I think are beneficial to anyone looking to, even if you're not necessarily running for school board, there's some pretty good information there as well. So Deb, I want to thank you on behalf of the party for your time tonight. I appreciate it. There's a lot of really good knowledge and experience that went into this presentation. So we really appreciate that. So thank you very much for your time, and thanks to everybody that was on tonight as well.
Yes,
So
thank you so much, and thanks for everyone that attended this evening.
Yeah, thank you very much.